Why do you think the West is not particularly outraged by the bombing of Iran but is instead praising Israel for what they call the dirty work?
That's what the most cynical people say. There will no longer be world order, only complete chaos. As the Russian president said today, World War III could be just around the corner. West's biases. It's no secret that they're trying to use Ukraine against Russia. They demonize Russia. Even the word demonist doesn't really convey how vicious their rhetoric and actions are. The female part of the European Commission is especially standing out. It's sad. As the president said during his address at the SPIEF 2025 forum and in other speeches, they are our neighbors, and we are not going to isolate ourselves from them. But they must change their approach, and then we shall see what they have to offer.
It is an outrageous, grave, and unprecedented violation of the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations and international law. The warmongering and lawless administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous consequences and far-reaching implications of its act of aggression.
In the region, there are two stretches of water to worry about, both strategically vital. The Houthis could threaten shipping in the Red Sea, while Iran could directly target vessels in the Persian Gulf, as they've done before, harassing ships with smaller boats, firing rockets at them and seizing them. Now, if the Gulf goes up in flames, expect a big hit to the global economy and the price of oil too. The Iranians have threatened to shut off the Strait of Hormuz, this choke point through which a third of the world's seaborne oil passes. All this would send shockwaves through the world's financial markets. The US has massively increased its presence to retaliate to any retaliation, with no less than 3 aircraft carrier battle groups in the region. As things stand, this is almost certain to escalate, but could it also widen and suck other nations into the conflict? Russia and Iran have a strategic partnership agreement, but it doesn't require Moscow to come to Iran's support. Iran is also China's closest ally in the Middle East, but Beijing is also likely to sit this one out, it's thought, and watch from the sidelines. The priority for Iran's leadership is to survive, to fight another day, and redouble efforts eventually to build the bomb. If Israel can't change the regime in Iran, which isn't easy, it'll have to manage the Iranian threat and cut it down to size from time to time. That could mean years more military action and could be hugely costly for both Israel and its American backers. So Iran is in a very tight spot, but the future could be challenging for both Israel and America too.
So I think the reason why this is the beginning, not the end of conflict, is because when evidence emerges that Iran is rebuilding its nuclear weapons program, as I believe is likely to happen, are we, the United States, prepared to bomb it again? And if it starts to reconstitute again, are we prepared to bomb it again after that?
Exactly. And how long of a prolonged conflict could this mean that the United States just got itself involved in?
Now, Russia, of course, is signatory to the NPT. On paper, at least, that means that it cannot help Iran develop nuclear weapons or develop its nuclear program. I say that because we are seeing the Iranian foreign minister, going to Moscow tomorrow to meet with Vladimir Putin. And I just wonder if that's going to be a topic of discussion.
Well, absolutely, it would be a topic of discussion. But I think the topic is not that Iran would ask Russia for help building a nuclear weapon. That's beyond the pale. Russia, I see no reason that Russia would do that. What Iran would be asking for is diplomatic assistance to block any moves by the UN Security Council to impose any penalties on Iran. There is a set of penalties that European states have been ready to reimpose, and Iran will ask Russia's help in blocking that, and in pouring scorn and trying to castigate the United States. In your previous conversation, that talked about illegalities and so forth.
Are you concerned that there might be a ripple effect if Iran withdraws from the NPT? Other countries might be looking to do the same.
Oh yes, I'm very concerned about that. I've been concerned about that for quite a while now. if Iran pulls out of the NPT, it doesn't necessarily mean that any other country would, but Saudi Arabia has vowed to match Iran if Iran were to go for nuclear weapons. And if Iran pulls out of the NPT, that would be a signal that Iran was seeking to pursue nuclear weapons in secret. Not necessarily the case, but that was what everyone would understand it to mean. And so Saudi Arabia, I think, would think about pulling out itself. And there might be other countries. Egypt, for example, has long been concerned that Israel doesn't face any international monitoring. And Egypt says that's unfair. And so Egypt, if others pulled out, might think that it would be worth their while to pull out. And, there could be other countries around the world similarly fed up with the international nuclear order.
The problem the United States and Israel have is Iran almost certainly has materials and equipment whose location we don't know about. So I've heard a lot this evening about the success of the attacks and how about the United States and Israel have destroyed facilities. But the problem that we now face is we haven't destroyed knowledge, we haven't destroyed materials, and we haven't destroyed equipment. And I don't think this attack has set Iran back nearly so far as some of the suggestions have indicated.
So, James, let me ask you more about that, because that is the suggestion that, maybe you can't take out the knowledge, maybe you can't take out, all of the equipment and facilities, but if you can set them back a number of years, that you weaken them dramatically, you could potentially reset peace talks or nuclear negotiations in the future. How much of a setback do you think a strike like this could be for Iran?
Well, there's two things that I'm very worried we haven't destroyed. The first thing is Iran's highly enriched uranium that was previously stored at Isfahan. Now, that was one of the facilities that was attacked tonight, but the Iranians have claimed, and I tend to believe them, that the highly enriched uranium had already been moved from Isfahan. This is material that is stored in things that look very much like scuba tanks. It's that small. Tracking that material is going to be exceptionally difficult. After the collapse of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the IAEA lost the ability to monitor the components that go into the centrifuges that Iran uses to enrich uranium. In my opinion, they've likely been spread around the entire country. What this means is that Iran has the ability to reconstitute its program, probably in a short number of years. And don't forget, one of the arguments against the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was that 10 to 15 years wasn't good enough of a delay.
As you know, Russia has built a nuclear reactor at Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant, and according to Vladimir Putin, Russia has signed contracts for 2 more. And despite the hostilities, the Russian employees continue to work in Bushehr, so probably this issue will be raised tomorrow. Generally, the Russian side seems to be very disappointed with U.S. actions, and even though the Kremlin has not yet officially commented on the U.S. night strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, the Russian Foreign Ministry has strongly condemned them. Russian diplomats have said that missile and bomb strikes on the territory of a sovereign state grossly violate international law and the UN Charter, no matter what arguments they are presented with. And the consequences of this action, including radioactive one, will have to be assessed.
President Trump claimed Iran's major nuclear facilities had been totally obliterated, a statement denied by the parliamentary member for Qom, where Fordo is based. Qasem Ravanbash said damage was not as severe as reported in US media and was only above ground and could be restored, and the US attack legitimized the use of military operations against its own forces in the region. Iran's foreign minister says Washington has crossed a very big red line.
While President Trump was elected on a platform of putting an end to America's costly involvement of forever wars in our part of the world, he has betrayed not only Iran by abusing our commitment to diplomacy, but also deceived his own voters by submitting to the wishes of a wanted war criminal who has grown accustomed to exploiting the lives and wealth of American citizens to further the Israeli regime's objectives.